Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You are tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere, including real time right now on my YouTube channel and KCAAradio.com, and on demand after iHeartRadio, iTunes, Audible, Spotify. I really should have a sheet of paper. There are very, very many that you can just easily Google and find, because I want to continue this momentum of bringing you what's right with the world, what's good with people, what's good with you, what's good with me, to balance out all of the CNN, constantly negative news, the headlines. If it bleeds, it leads. All the things that you scroll in the morning. Hopefully you're not, because it's really difficult to have a good day when you start your day listening to what is wrong with people, what is wrong with government, what is wrong with the community, what is wrong with everything. And not saying that we shouldn't know what things are not going well, but at the same time, if we're constantly focused on the problem, we will never get to the vibration of the solution. So it's my job to balance it out with bringing you all of what's good, and today's no exception. Today, we're going to hear from another podcaster that I got to be on his show, and we talked, and he's very aligned with everything that I am thinking. And I always love it when I'm on a show and I start talking, and when it comes time for the podcaster to respond, they are speechless. That is a compliment, because I've said something that made them think. So I was delighted and wanted to bring you, he has a book coming out, and I thought we would play a little, because he doesn't have a title for the book. And you know, I love working with new authors to be in that creative process. So I invited him on. We're going to have a great conversation for the rest of the show today. And you get to meet Dave Hollenbach. He is a retired fire captain and more. So stay tuned for the rest of the show when I interview him and find out what his life has been like. And baby, baby, light my fire. Baby, baby, light my fire. I haven't sung in a while. Anyways, I am so delighted that you are here. I hope that you will keep it tuned. Remember, if you don't have enough of me during the morning, then you can always follow me on my social media, Doc Balance on Instagram, and Dr. Marissa everywhere else, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook page. I'm even on TikTok, but don't tell my daughters. But it's just delightful to be with you. Thank you so much for all of the wonderful congratulations messages, me moving from a weekly primetime to a daily morning primetime show. And thanks again to all that support me, including all my guys at KCAA, Mike and Mark and Rick and Fred. So that's it. Make sure you come back after the break here on Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show. We'll be right back in 2 and 2. Peace in, peace out. World peace through inner peace. And welcome back. You are tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, streaming everywhere because I'm on a happy 88 mission. 88 million more happy people in the next 8 years, and that's why I talk about the stuff that I do, and I bring people on to help me with that mission. And today is no exception. I would like to introduce you to a man that I actually met because I was on his hot seat on his show, and he's writing a book. And what are the chances that we have the same publisher? Did not make this stuff up. There are kind of a lot of publishers in the United States. So I knew that was a sign to have him on to talk about his new book that's coming out. So please welcome to my show, Dave Hollenbach. And welcome to my show, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And I'm going to have you introduce yourself with my friend who does not have an answering machine. She has a questioning machine. And when you call her, she says, "Who are you and what do you want?" So, who are you and what do you want?
My name is Dave Hollenbach. I am a 23-year veteran of the fire service. I spent 23 years working my way up from firefighter to battalion chief. Spent several years as the chief of special operations, and then an operations battalion chief where I managed 6 fire stations. And
Wow.
After I retired, I set out to really share a lot of my experiences. Prior to my retirement, I made some poor choices and really kind of put myself in a negative spotlight, I would say, and spent a little bit of time being embarrassed about my decisions. And really, one of the things that I had been working on was really mentoring and coaching fire service professionals, whether they're probationary firefighters or even seasoned fire officers, but really working with them and developing their leadership abilities. And really, in everything that I did in mentoring and coaching, the main purpose of it was to really make sure that when people that I coached and mentored took on a leadership role, they really took it in and made it a part of themselves, and understood that when they accepted that responsibility to lead others, they were obligating themselves to ensure the success of those people that were following them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Do you think that purpose was, let me look at the timing of that. Was that after you made the mistakes or before you made the mistakes? So was that a direct result of like, oops, and now to help people not make that same oops, this is what I'd like to do?
Well, I would like to say that I've only made the last set of mistakes that I made, but I've made a lot of.
I've only made one mistake. It's that one. Saying that I only made one mistake, but
yeah.
Okay.
No, I'd made a series of mistakes throughout my professional career, and really used those mistakes to really learn more about myself, learn how to take those mistakes, add value to myself, and then use those mistakes to help others avoid those same mistakes.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I asked the question, because I think that is the purpose of life. And I hope you're not beating yourself up over those missed takes. Your smile just gave that away. Because this is the common thing that happens with human beings is we have this BS belief system that we're supposed to get things right the first time. And we don't want to make a mistake. We avoid making mistakes. We hide things under the carpet because we don't want to admit the mistake. And that's such it's a tough way to live because we're not perfect. We're never going to not make a mistake. But the most important thing is what you just validated was, so you make a mistake. What did I learn from this? And what do I know about where not to step? And how do I make myself feel better so that I'm not constantly living in the mistake? So when you take the mistake and develop a program to help others avoid it, that's great. But if you're doing it as a punitive action to continue to punish yourself, that's not good. So I'm going to do a little unasked for coaching right now. And that's for you, is that I absolutely know that you are the one-of-a-kind, wonderful person you are because of all those things that happened. And that there is no more flagellating, no more beating yourself up with a wet noodle around those things. And I think if everyone within the sound of my voice and beyond could cut themselves a little more slack and quit revisiting, that's why one of the chapters in the book is out of shame into dignity. We're not supposed to continue to live in that regret or live in the woulda, shoulda, coulda, or live in that place of, well, that was a mistake. So that's my message to you, because you have your own show, Out of the Embers, right?
Yeah, from embers to excellence.
Okay, that's it. And you are writing a book. I'm sure the book, let's talk about the book. Is the book a reflection of lessons learned?
Yes, absolutely. And so I've been a student of philosophy and many world religions. And really one of the things that I found through studying Taoism, Confucianism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, Stoic philosophy. There's so many. Well, and I was born and raised in the church. I grew up Lutheran, and then
I'm sorry. I'm just kidding.
So I just have a really broad view, and I feel like there are universal truths that span humankind's history, and how people identify with God kind of shapes their religious beliefs or their philosophical beliefs. And it has to do with culture and that sort of thing. I like to think that I've studied enough and come to my own conclusions, but I know that my life and my beliefs have been shaped by my life, which included, growing up in the Lutheran church and going to church every Sunday as a kid. And but that being said, I also have studied enough, and I don't know. I don't want to irritate anybody or be considered blasphemous, but there are a lot of Eastern philosophical
Streams of thought.
Yeah, in Christianity, and there's a lot of parallels. And so, that being said, just if you look across all of the world's religions, there's lessons to be learned in all of them.
Absolutely.
And most of all is that we are here for everybody else. I believe that we are meant to grow and become better ourselves so that we can add value to those around us. And how we do that is kind of something that I address in the book. And I talk about a few different things. A lot of it is my mistakes and the lessons that I've learned. And really, if you fall on your face and you don't use that experience to grow and add value to others, then it's a wasted, skinned up face. So
yes, it is. Yeah, and you have a limited view of the world when you're looking at the pavement on your face. Right. I mean, you just shut your life down. So we'll be right back with more from Dave Hollenbach on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind. We'll be right back. And we're back, and you're tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show. And we are talking to an author today who served as a fire captain for many years, learned some lessons the easy way and the hard way. When Dave and I were talking about what to talk about on the show today, he mentioned that he doesn't have a title yet. It is in the works. It's going to the publisher very soon. He's in the last stages with the editor. So I thought we would do something fun, which is something that I do with new authors. It's a program, part of my Be the Best That You Can Be and broadcast it. So figuring out how to communicate about something that you have as a product or a service or a book. So I thought we would play this game now. And I love doing this because I get to be a full conduit and channel of creativity, which to me is like baby spiritual orgasms all the time because I'm in the flow of that energy. Yes, I did say the O word because it's the best way to describe what it's like. And we all have access to this creativity. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions that I usually ask my new authors, and you're going to answer them. And in that process, one, you're going to tell us about the book, and two, you're going to fuel me to be thinking about possible titles and possible commercials to make about the book. All right? So here we go. What are the top 3 things after reading your book that you want people to walk away with?
A strong sense of self.
That's one.
Then be able to develop a grand strategy to really guide their life, helping themselves develop as leaders and in turn develop other leaders as well.
And 3?
And 3, well, a big part of growing in the fire service was, and it's a story that I tell in the book, but really I'll let that story lie. And if you want to learn how I came about this, in a male-dominated occupation, the fire service is quite a different culture than most male-dominated organizations. It's pretty exclusive, and it isn't the most welcoming to women. And there are a lot of men in the fire service that believe that women don't belong. And early on in my career, I was one of those knuckleheads. And through my time in the fire service and the research that I've done on leadership, I've found that women bring something to the leadership, the leadership formula, I guess. Men and women can learn from one another and help each other develop their strengths, and dial in where they're weak.
Mm-hmm.
And a good example of that is, by and large, and I'm talking about the emotional intelligence component of leadership. Women tend to be better communicators than men.
What? Just kidding.
They tend to
Couldn't resist.
They tend to be more empathetic, better at developing relationships, and keeping those relationships. And the whole communication component, when it comes to leadership and developing a high performing team, you have to have good communication skills, and you have to know your people. So I feel like if women were in greater numbers and mentored to the same degree that men are in the fire service, there would be better leaders, more of the same, and well, there wouldn't be a lot of the problems that there are. And one of the things that I alluded to towards my retirement, some mistakes that I made, where I talk about mentoring and how important it is for men to mentor women. But there are some very firm boundaries that you must have, and I learned that the hard way. And,
I'm starting to get a sense of what the errors were, but we don't want to take away from the book. So, but here's one more question, and then I'm going to take a stab at a couple of things. So, who is your ideal readership? So, who is the target? Give me the profile of someone who would really benefit from this book. Someone who wants to go into the fire service, someone who wants to learn more about leadership, someone who wants to feel better about mistakes they've made in the past. Tell me about that.
Well, that's the thing about it. I wanted it to appeal to a very broad audience. Leadership is leadership. Good solid leadership is going to be just that in any organization.
What was the hardest part to get through writing about in the book? What was the easiest and what was the hardest? And how many chapters are there?
There are 10 chapters.
Okay. Do you have chapter titles?
I do have quite a few.
Okay. Can you read them off to me? And as you're getting that, I'm going to do a little station ID. If you've just tuned in and you're wondering who's on my show today, I have just about to be author. His name is Dave Hollenbach. He is hailing from Florida. He's a retired fire captain of 5 battalions. So one of the questions I'm going to ask him later, don't let me forget to ask him if you're commenting on this show, is why is it that most fire personnel, and they're almost all men. Why are they good looking? Like, what is that? Is that like a requirement on the job? I know. I will just about ask anything. Those of you who know me, I put the moose on the table, my Canadian version of the elephant in the room. But anyways, you are tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and everywhere that you can think of streaming about hope and happiness. So we were going to talk about chapters, the chapter titles in your book. So go ahead with that. And then I'm going to take a stab at a couple of titles that I like. Ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
So the chapter titles that I've got so far, chapter 1 is How Do You Define Yourself? Chapter 2 is, let's see here, chapter 2.
I love it. It's the same way when people ask me what the chapters in my book that is published already are, and I have to stop and hesitate. I know I wrote it, but I have a lot of stuff on my mind. So cut them some slack.
Chapter 2 is Where Are You Going? Chapter 3 is What Do You Stand For? Chapter 4. Oh, geez. Why are you doing this?
Right?
Let's see. And that, I believe that's the chapter where I kind of dive into some experiences that I've had throughout my life. I've been diagnosed with PTSD. I've struggled with, the symptoms of that for quite some time, and it's not fun. It's I know a lot of my peers, a lot of people in public safety struggle with it. There is a stigma surrounding it. It can be viewed as a weakness, actually. So, of
course, and very contrary to the manly man perception that you need to have when you're in the fire or an EMT or a policeman. Those are the three. You're not supposed to show weakness. You're not supposed to have any weakness at all. Can I ask what the PTSD is from?
Well,
on the job.
On the job. Childhood things.
Okay.
Typically, you can find, so there's a study out. It's called the ACE study. It is related to childhood trauma that leads to later, makes you more susceptible to trauma as an adult. So there's that component, and then I worked for 23 years in the fire service. I worked in the busiest fire stations that Central Florida has to offer. Done a lot. I've seen a lot of things that most people don't want to read about. So the book doesn't go into a whole lot of detail with that. Gives you a general idea, because I didn't want people to be scared away from certain things. So it doesn't go into a whole lot of gory detail, but it's enough that you get the idea. I've seen a lot.
Yeah. And now that kind of explains, when I was on Dave's show, I went, how shy I am and how difficult it is for me to talk about anything. But Sarcasm is another service I offer. But after I did my first section and I talked about the 7 out of 10 of us who have had childhood trauma, and Oprah, my honorable moniker, says is as high as 8 out of 10. Those of you who've listened to me know that that's part of my standard talk. But I can remember when I finished that first segment, Dave was like, I'm speechless. And I loved it. I love that reaction, because then I know that there was an opening, that something went and filled. That's when people are speechless, is when it really resonates and it's a perfect fit for a space that had been empty but open. That's when people are speechless. So it's always a compliment when people say they're speechless. And I'm happy to tell you that 3 times on that show, I made Dave speechless. So it tells me that, the what he's doing and talking about and feeling is normal, number one, and illustrative of the journey that all of us have the opportunity to take. So that's one of the titles, is A Journey to Me, my life from fire to, and then you can use your show, Embers to Excellence or whatever. But I thought that was a nice capture, because it is, your experiences, but it's also important because you are that, I'm going to go real big, 88,000 foot look now. You're a white male. And white male, I'm guessing you're tall. You're a tall white male in a job that is coveted, right, by a lot of men. It's a symbol of manly man, right? Fire captain. You can't get much manlier than that. And looks are deceiving. Like, looking at you, you wouldn't think that you've had all of those things, right? So I think that it's important, and I'm going to tell Morgan James to put your face on the cover like they did mine, even though Dave Hancock will say no. Normally, that's not, especially for first-time authors, they don't want you to do that. They advise against it. But because you are a white male, and right now, white men have so much crap around that label of white man, I think it's important, because you're also doing something that, if you can do it, then other people can do it, which is being honest about who you are. So the other title that I was looking at was Looks Are Deceiving, ... Are You Who You Think You Are? So there's another title that I think would be quite attractive for someone, who's maybe feeling like they're a little lost, right? Or they want to, like you said, get a sense of self. That's your goal, right? So isn't that a good one? I thought that was a good one, right? The third one is, and I already told him, if the book goes bestseller, he has to pay me for this. Because the title is very important, but David's going to have his own team come up with titles. So don't tell them that I came up with these first. So the third one I thought was My Life, Trial by Fire, ... literally. Aren't those good titles?
Yeah, they are.
Right? Drop the mic. So, I just love that, because I'm listening to them, that's where the inspiration goes. That's where the creativity goes. So those are 3 for you to play with.
Okay. Yeah. And it's funny that you talk about that. So, you can kind of glean from things that I've already said that my retirement came earlier than I would have liked. And I spent the bulk of my adult life in the fire service. And that was my identity. That was that was my purpose. And when I no longer had that, there was this identity crisis. Like, I've still been really working on defining who I am. And it, I'm no longer a fire officer, a chief officer. I don't go to fires. It's one of those things that it was a huge part of my life. Even my days off, I spent training. And now I'm trying to take my experiences and really talk about them in a way that others can apply those same experiences to their lives in order to avoid the same pitfalls that I found through my own ignorance or just kind of lack of self-awareness, I guess.
So a couple things. A fourth title just came up called Please Learn from My Mistakes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a very honest heart to heart connection title. You can put colon and then whatever around it. I think you should highlight something to do with fire captain or that line of work. The other thing is, I as a coach, I'm now making myself your coach too. You're going to owe me so much money by the end of this interview. So, this whole two things. One is you're never going to get it done and you're never going to get it wrong. So that's actually something from law of attraction, which is, not Eastern or Western, quantum physics, quantum mechanics. It's sort of even at a higher level than a construct called religion, but just understanding that is what life is. And so when people get frustrated because they can't answer that question that I started you with, who am I and what do I want? I point out very quickly that it's not the answer that's important. It's the questioning that's important. And you're never going to get it wrong. There's no wrong answer here, and you're never going to get it done. You are ever evolving. I know you're looking now for that feeling of, okay, I get it now. And you're not there, and you're doing all the things you're doing because you're not there, and you're still trying to gleam from all of this self thinking and self-contemplating, and you're a huge analyzer, and you're really very heady. You're very curious. You want to know. You want to nail that knowing down. And I'm here to tell you that this is truly, if you can find the joy in the journey, then you're going to ease up a little on the destination, and you're going to be happier because you do know who you are. You're just switching from, and this is one of the exercises in my book, going from a relational definition of who you are. So you were a fire captain, a firefighter, a teacher, a leader, a team leader, a coach, a mentor, and all of these things, a boyfriend, a husband, whatever, those labels, a friend, a son, all of those definitions are relational. They describe what you did for those people. You put out fires for people. You mentored to teach people. You did everything. So that part of your identity is true, but there's chunks of them that are gone. And so, yes, you're going to feel like you're not whole. But if you switch out and quit defining yourself as the relation that you have or what you do for people, and define yourself as the core of who you are. And I can tell you right now, I don't know you that well, but I can feel who you are. You're so caring. You're caring, you're compassionate, you're authentic, you are loving, you are sensitive, you're creative, you're a huge thinker, you're a philosopher. These are all things that you were then too, but you didn't define yourself that way. And because of that, you feel you're missing. But if you switch the definition to what I just said, did you disagree with anything I just said?
No, not at all. And it's funny that what you're talking about, I actually did write quite a bit about that. Defining your purpose and really kind of setting some broad goals. You might find that you can feel fulfilled in, like, you're fulfilling your purpose in this occupation. But that's just a mechanism for you to express who you are. You can do that in other areas of your life. And I talk about, there's all these roads that we can take to get to our endpoint, to our final destination. And if we remain true to ourselves, it doesn't matter which road we're traveling on to get there. We'll find our way, and we can add value to people regardless of which path we take. And what we can find is that when we come up on obstacles, if we can't find a way over them, under them, around them, through them, there is no other choice but to take another road. And so it instead of viewing it as, oh, woe is me, look, my whole life's plans have become derailed, it really hasn't. You're just taking a different road, or maybe a different mode of transportation to get there. So it's very, I want to say that we are in agreement in so many different ways. You're just a lot better at laying out the path.
Thank you, but that's not true. I'm better at laying out the path for the people who understand what I'm talking about. You're better at laying out the path for those people who understand and process the way that you're explaining it. And I'm so adamant about that. That's why I chafe when people say, this is the way to do it, or this is the way you have to do it, or this is, because it's like, no, I have people who use my methodology and my book, and they get a lot out of it, and they are helped. But I don't have the answer, the only answer. There's so many answers, just like there's so many religions, just like there's so many, there's something for everyone. That's why I think everybody should write a book, because your own path has highlighted those things that are unique to you, but can help a large number. The entire human race can be split in so many different ways. There's 7.3 billion of us. There's room for all of us in our unique talents, gifts, and abilities. So your job is, and this is why, if I were your writing coach, I know you want it to hit everyone, but my advice is to hone it to those who get you and need to know from you that it's going to be okay. Yeah. And you have a lot of unique things in your story that are going to help. I would definitely target for those men. I think it's very clear that your book is really good for the displaced white male, even. Those who know that, the time of white supremacy and white male dominance is coming to an end. And there's people that are really having a tough time with that and screaming and jumping up and down saying, no way, Jose. Or actually, they're not even saying that. They're saying, no. It was, what is it? The votes were stolen. It was a lie. It's a conspiracy. And they're having a really tough time with it. So I think your book and your experiences are in a perfect positioning as a white male to help map out a journey to you, a journey to themselves, in understanding some of the feelings that they're having, feelings of confusion or feelings of disappointment in self or feelings of woulda, shoulda, coulda. But your message is absolutely important in your own way,
So one of the things that you did mention earlier was during our interview on my show, it really struck me the 7 or 8 out of 10 people that have experienced childhood trauma. A lot of people go through life feeling like they're the only ones that feel that way, and there's a lot of public safety professionals and veterans that suffer silently because they feel like they're the only ones that, they feel broken. I mean, I was there. I know. I felt broken. I felt helpless. And there's this sense of just losing control. Mm-hmm. And that's really a lot of what leads to PTSD is you've experienced situations where you had zero control over what was happening.
Correct. I just came up with a new title. Stop setting yourself on fire. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. I think that's the ticket. So, yes, and I'm glad that you didn't know that statistic, and I'm glad that you do that now. And I don't know if you remember what I said at the end of the show, is it is never your fault if you've gone through that. Nothing that you did deserved that. It wasn't right. It shouldn't have happened, but it did. You had no responsibility then, but you do now. So you have a choice now to continue to use that as an excuse to have a shitty life, or you can deal with it, work in it, grapple with it, heal from it, and then have an amazing life. That's your choice. That's your responsibility. So yeah. Anyways, we're out of time, of course, because, that's just the way it is. We never have enough time, but I really am glad that we had a chance to have this show to talk about your book. Can't wait for it to come out. We really can't point people right now to go buy it, but you got to be part of the process in helping with the title, finding a way to learn about Dave's book in a different way and to learn about Dave's story. And if you're touched by his story and want to stay in touch, how do we find you and how do people connect with you?
I'm all over social media. I have a website with all the links, HollenbachLeadership.com, HOLLEN, B as in boy, ACH, leadership.com. And as a matter of fact, anybody listening that may know somebody or they themselves are struggling with PTSD, I have a whole page on my website dedicated to resources that are available to veterans and first responders, and there's tools on there. So check it out. You can pass it along. And, my podcast is From Embers to Excellence. And I talk a lot about PTSD, leadership development. You talk with veterans and first responders, and great, interesting people like Dr. Marissa. And yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Well, one last quick question. To who and what are you most grateful for? Because I asked that of all my guests.
To who and what am I most grateful for? Well, I am extremely grateful to be living this life and experiencing the things that I am experiencing so that I can share and add value to others. And of course, my beautiful daughter, Isabella. So
Beautiful. How old is she?
she is 14.
Beautiful. If you can say teenager and beautiful at the same time, that's always a good thing. All right. And that's it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. To take my advice, I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show. Remember, it's all about balance. Peace in, peace out, world peace through, inner peace. And don't forget to have the best day ever.